Hello, fellow Toolboxers. Welcome to episode number 333. We're doing a great interview with Meagan Kirchner, who knows H-2B really well, which is a category I have no idea anything about. So I'm glad we're talking with her. She did an article for the Toolbox magazine that breaks it down, but it's always easier to have someone in person talk and just talk about different kind of case types they've handled to get a better understanding. Because it's a very critical visa for the infrastructure employment-wise in the United States. These are like people that need to be here to do a fundamental job. So I'm glad to talk with her about it. Before getting started, as y'all know, we have a marriage immigration course. Along with that, I've thrown in the raw recording. I think it's like 10 hours for O1 seminar we had a year and a half ago, the top O1 attorneys in LA. Combo, so 2 for the price of 1. If you're interested in learning about marriage immigration, admissibility, consular processing, adjustment status, all that for your team member, if you're getting involved, or you're already doing it, but you want to break down the way we do it based on the INA, the CFR, going into real detail like that, hit me up, info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, or through our course page on the website. Also, if you're not on the community page for Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, let me know. We just posted a white label version of an I-693 handout we give to clients. And I just made a white label Word document. You put your own firm on there, and it helps people know what's going on with the medical, what to watch out for, what to ask the doctor, all that kind of stuff free. We just got to have you join the community so we can have it in a private setting. Having said that, all the information provided here is not intended for individual legal guidance. Consult with an attorney if you're not an attorney listening to this. But having said that, let's jump into it. Meagan, it's so good to see you.
Hi, happy to see you. Happy to be here.
So let's start. How did you get involved with immigration law?
My background in immigration goes all the way back to law school. Worked for the federal government in Office of Judge Advocate General and decided to get out of HR and go into look for a job that actually was in law. And the first thing available was immigration. And it was interesting to me because it was, I like to write. It was heavily writing intensive, and it was EB1 NIW work solely in a law clerk at a very boutique firm in Washington, D.C. And that's how it started. It's kind of got into it and never left.
And then, so like, how did the move to H-2B come? Because it's such a niche field that you're really a hardcore in.
Yeah. So I've actually, a bulk of my practice has been in various niche areas. So I've started, like I said, in that EB1 NIW space, did EB5 exclusively for almost 4 years, and happened to move to a really rural area. And there was a firm here that practiced heavily in H-2B, and I kind of just fell into it. It's so, it's like perm light. So having broader immigration experience, it really gives you that, more instant satisfaction than something like perm that just kind of drags on forever.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's get into that. First of all, what is H-2B? Who is it for?
I mean, H-2B is for employers that are working seasonally. So it can be, one-time peak load or seasonal needs. And that's the bulk of it, is really seasonal or peak load. And those are your, either companies that operate purely seasonally, meaning they're only open 9 or 10 months a year, or peak load being employers that operate year round, but they have this very distinct peak during certain months of the year for their season. So for the bulk of H-2B filers, those are traditional seasons, sometime between April and November or December, something like that. So really the most industries that you commonly think of for H-2B would be your landscapers, hospitality, construction. So those are your big players in the industry for the most part, but it's not limited to that. Any company that can really prove a distinct peak in the business overall, has an argument to be made there.
So it's like, I'm thinking like during Christmas time, they have all these lots that pop up where they have Christmas tree dealers. Could that be something that they could do? Or Halloween, like we have pop-up shops for Halloween costumes?
Sure. I mean, those kinds of businesses would definitely have an easy, or not an easy, but a good argument to make.
Easy in immigration.
Never easy. Easy is not the right word, but there's something like that would have a very cut and dry beginning and end. And, there's a holiday, it's very specific. The bigger challenge there would not be whether or not you'd qualify for H-2B, but whether that particular season is going to fall into a period of time that's going to have visas available because the H-2B program is a capped program. There are annual numerical limits to that. So that's another separate challenge for H-2B is even if you would qualify, meaning your business could prove a seasonality or a peak load, that doesn't mean if you would be approved, there would be visas available to you. So while it would be a fit for quite a few more businesses than there are today that participate, you know, a lot of those are shut out just by the process and the limitations with the program of the way it's currently structured.
Is there a prevailing wage requirement for these?
Yes, there is a prevailing wage. H-2B, every H-2B case would file a prevailing wage in the flag system with Department of Labor based on location and, you know, occupation code, experience, et cetera, much like a lot of other immigration programs.
And so, okay, so you have prevailing wage. There's a seasonal aspect to it, but one problem we have a lot of times is because of like just the delays. And with USCIS, first of all, is there premium processing for these?
There is premium processing for these. Obviously, with all immigration filings, it's technically optional, but with it being such a short season and such an urgent need, it's a finite window for your DOL certification. It's really not optional. You have to file with premium processing so that you make sure you get it turned around in order to, you know, get the workers here in time and actually be able to benefit them. Because like you said, all the delays in immigration, you have delays at the Department of Labor that take forever. And then once you get to USCIS, if there are any more delays, you're going to miss your season. And then even after you're approved, you're still at the mercy of the consular appointments.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. I guess we're nothing to do about consular. But so Department of Labor, are the backlogs because for regular perm cases, their backlogs the same for H-2B as well?
So they're not the same as they would be when you're looking at a perm case. So there are delays, but they're kind of a different flavor. So the way the H-2B program works is there's 66,000 visas a year broken up into two halves of the fiscal year. 33,000 come out October 1st, 33,000 come out April 1st. So there's essentially what we call a lottery, but it's really what happens is they take all of the applications received during a 3-day filing window, which occurs 90 days before the start date of need. So July 3rd for October 1st, January 1st for April 1st filers. And
so you just got done with the filing season right now.
I just started, or I'm just in the throes of my October 1st filing season. Yep. Those were just filed and just starting to be processed now.
So you're getting notifications whether they're won or not kind of thing?
So it's not a lottery in the sense of H-2B, whether you win or not. It's a lottery because they put you, and it's not as big a deal for October because the demand is not as intense as it is for the spring. For instance, and what they do with this lottery is they put every application, they assign it, a randomization process that they assign each employer's application a group letter, A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth. For instance, for this October 1st filing that I just did, there's only employers in Group A and Group B, meaning that typically the way they structure it is there's enough employers or applications in Group A to encompass the entire first half cap. And then there's usually about 20,000, 19 or 20,000 in each subsequent group. Now for my last spring filing, I had people assigned from A to F. So there's a lot of extra applications that are not going to be in that 33,000 cap.
Yeah.
So the lottery isn't in officially whether you get or don't get workers. It's not going to guarantee if you get approved at Department of Labor. It's not going to guarantee approval at USCIS. But what it does in effect is because they process each group sequentially, all of A before B, so on and so forth. Essentially, if you get a group that's too late in the process, the Department of Labor processing time will be such that, or not their time, but the volume will be such that by the time they get to your group, the people ahead of you or the applications ahead of you would already have been certified and able to file with USCIS using up the cap before you're even able to get certified by Department of Labor. So it's a lottery in the sense of you get lucky and I get assigned a particular group. And there's no premium processing fee or any extra thing we can file or ask for as an attorney or an employer to increase those odds. It's a random process. There's nothing we can do to influence what group we're going to get.
So when you register, it's an employer that registers, and you say how many employees you want to ask underneath it, or?
So you'll have your prevailing wage that you'll assign to your case, and it is company specific. So you will tell them on the 9142, the actual H-2B application that is filed, again, 90 days before filing, information about the employer. So the prevailing wage would have had all of your employer information, FEIN, mailing address, work site address, counties that you're going to work in, all of those, the job description, experience requirements, licensing requirements, all of that pulls over from your prevailing wage. And on the 9142, you will add more, it is employer specific, but you will also add details about your H-2B request, not just about the position. So you will add how many workers you're looking for, what's your season, what are the months you're looking for, what is your quote statement of needs. So you explain why you're asking for the months you're asking for, why your business is seasonal or peak load or a one-time need, whatever the case may be. And you'll also input information in there, such as, deductions, whether you're not using a recruiter, things like that go into the 9142.
And how long is the prevailing wage valid for in these cases?
They're valid if you file after July 1st, when, of course, the wages roll over. Those are valid through June 30th next year. When you're doing, so that's for your spring files, your April filing or something like that. If you're doing for instance, when I file my winter being October 1st filers, prevailing wages in the spring, those are only valid through June 30th. So whether or 3 months. That's one challenge with filing for the fall is if you file too early, your wage may expire before you file on July 3rd. So if I get a prevailing wage too soon, it's not useful.
And this is an I-129 kind of petition that you submit with the attachments or the extra part?
So for the Department of Labor stage or for USCIS?
For USCIS.
Yes, once you get through Department of Labor, it is on an I-129.
And how do you have to specify the number you have there? You can lock it in, or how does that work?
Yes, everything on the 129 will essentially match what you've been certified for, your certified need from Department of Labor. So your number of workers, you don't have to match your number of workers. If you ask for 10 from Department of Labor, but you don't decide by the time you get to USCIS, you're only going to use 8, you can apply for 8 instead. But your dates of needs locked in, your pay, deductions, all of that information is locked in. Your location, all of those things are things that would have been disclosed on a job order at the recruitment stage for Department of Labor. So you would have, during that process, the purpose being test the U.S. labor markets. You can't change things after the fact there.
All right. So it seems like these are complicated cases. Like, how is it worth it for an employer to do this? Like, I guess it is worth it. You're doing it. Typically you said landscaping and hotels need this kind of work.
Right.
It's just a lot of legal work, and with how long it's going to take. Are they going to get the visa in time? Like, who are the people who are willing to do this kind of things?
You would think it would be, more affluent, bigger companies that would be able to absorb the legal costs, the time. But a lot of my current clients, I've obviously worked with larger firms and companies, but they're small. They are, 10 employee or less companies. They are so starved for laborers and employees that will show up to work. They go through and they've trained employee after employee that have been there a day or two. And the number of times I've had to explain in payroll that the payroll chart is indicative of equivalent full-time positions may not line up correctly with their payroll and the names on their payroll, because that's how much turnover there is and how difficult it is. And they just can't fill slots. So these people are faced with higher H-2B or scale back substantially because they just can't maintain enough workforce to meet demand. And these are small, like I said, small companies, and it's worth it for them to do it every year, because they just can't survive otherwise.
But then there's a problem from your perspective that you have like all these visa applicants. Are these visas multiple entry, or could they be just for that one season, or once you get it, you could come next season?
Unfortunately, it is one season at a time. In prior years, they've had various carve outs for, or a lot of lobbying to try and expand the program for like what they call returning worker exemptions, meaning that if their workers had an H-2B in the past 3 years or something like that, that they would be exempt. That has not gained traction in Congress to pass. So right now, it's every employer files for their season every year and has to go through the throes of finding out, am I going to get in group A or B and have a really good chance of getting the same guys I've had for 5 years? Or am I going to end up in group C or fall later and hope that there's what we called a whole nother beast in H-2B, supplemental visas. So there's another category that comes through the federal rulemaking process. And that varies year to year on how many and what those look like, where countries those are pulling from. The most common the past, I don't know, 3 years or so have been one pot of visas called returning worker visas, meaning once the initial cap runs out, after a certain period of time, usually 15 days after the cap is met, there's a new pot of visas called returning worker visas that if the worker has held an H-2B at least one time in the past 3 years, they qualify for this additional pot of visas. Now, how many that is totally up to what Congress does or what USCIS and Department of Labor and they decide on the government side.
We saw this during pandemic. I think they made some special carve outs for this, but just getting the visa appointment, especially from Mexico where there's backlogs, does that mess up a lot too, just getting an appointment?
It was definitely really dicey and difficult in the first years of COVID. There's a vast improvement in appointment processing times last year.
Are these like prioritized because of the nature of them?
Yes. H-2A and H-2B tend to have more appointments available, and they do bulk appointments. They don't presently, they don't all require an in-person appointment. So they'll submit batch, passports. And sometimes someone will get called in for an appointment or an in-person, which, greatly kind of streamlines that. That obviously could change with if the administration changes, things like that. So it could get more challenging and more time consuming. Not that it's not already time consuming.
You have to fill out a DS-160 for each person. And that's a whole mess if people don't have access to the internet or they don't know what to fill it out. So that's a whole complication there.
That is a complicating factor. H-2B is unique compared to a lot of other immigration points where it's just attorney focused. This particular branch of visas is, we have a lot of what are called, foreign agents, and the Department of Labor will post a list of agents that are reputable and, they're will remain compliant with H-2B, not charging fees to workers and improper things like that. So essentially what those companies will do is they'll have offices in the countries that you're processing. They'll meet with workers in person. They'll collect all their information. They'll help them fill out the forms. They will help the employers pay the visa fees. So those are something that traditionally an attorney would do, but most attorney offices just can't do that. There's not volume for hundreds of workers to be processed. There's just not a way to do that efficiently.
Interesting. What are some like industry case interesting other than the landscape hotel? But what other things have you seen done or have you done in this category that you wouldn't expect?
There's a lot of it. I've seen some. Like jewelry making is one I've seen. Like there's certain times of the year where that's more you're prepping for a holiday. A lot of your delivery drivers. I mean, it's not particularly interesting, but it is something you may not think of. I've had clients that are like Amazon drivers, basically.
Oh wow, you're right. Yeah,
drivers, things like that. Christmas tree or Christmas light decorators, wreath rollers, like in the season, off season.
Interesting.
Just a lot of these different industries that are like we kind of talked about at the beginning. There's lots of industries that maybe would or used to qualify or still qualify, but just with the structure of the cap, it's you don't see those kind of
Yeah.
filings often if they don't align perfectly with their seasons.
So in your practice, typically these companies reach out to you and want someone that does H-1B, that H-2B that's like reliable and stuff, and you just kind of
Sure.
have a clientele that you keep growing.
Yes, a lot of my H-2B is referral based. So you end up with pockets of clients basically. So the word of mouth is huge in H-2B. That's a very, you wouldn't know it, that landscaping is a very tight knit community. So everybody knows all their competitors.
Yeah.
And they're more collegial than you would think, with such a what you think would be competitive industry, but it's just trying to get your landscaping schedule. There's a backlog, so I mean, there's plenty of work to go around, and they all need help.
I mean, well, for our landscapers, I remember we had one company for my house, and then this they just like gave our account to someone else, and I see our old gardener on the other side. They're all cool with each other, and I need to just get them to come do something. They're like, I'll come next month or 2 months from now. I'm like, you guys have that much business with the price you're charging, and you're still like backed up. Like, I'm in the wrong field. I didn't even do that.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's a lot of how people find is just, I mean, obviously there's the internet, but social media and word of mouth are really the biggest drivers there.
So, your solo practice now, you kind of work with other firms at the same time. How's that? You running your own firm? How long has it been now? It's been like
It's
2-3
been
years
about,
now, right?
since I've run my own firm, it's only been 3 months.
First started talking, you kind of went to, when was that?
It's been about 3 months since I've actually been.
Oh, you're working with somebody. Oh, you're full 3 months now. Congrats.
Just on my own firm for 3 months. I worked at a very small firm before this, and have just, life takes you where you need to, a little more control and.
Well, cool thing is this kind of work is all online stuff. So it's just like meetings and Zoom meetings and like emails and stuff, right?
A lot of online work. I've got clients that are very geographically dispersed. So obviously all the USCIS filings are still paper. So we're kind of wedded to some office work, but most of the client work is a lot of phone. And that's one thing with a lot of these industries is they're a little they're out in the field. So a lot of these employers or clients need someone who can text them or call them, not just rely on email, because they may not see an email. They may not have an admin.
So that's times. What's been the biggest challenge now that you're on your own trying to set up, and what difficulty you're running into?
I think the biggest challenge is just having time to do all the things that, marketing is not something I have time for, because I'm just so hands-on with the clients. Because that's what they're used to. They're used to be seeing my face or hearing my voice, right? That is one thing that I've found with H-2B for client retention, is just that they really want to hear you talk to them. They really want to know that you know what's going on in their case. And it's been really valuable, just because they're so busy that they don't have people to take care of this back office stuff. So they need a little more hand holding than maybe someone working with HR at a big IT company or startup.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. Yeah. I've my company of our firm, like I'm really good at the marketing portion, but when I really go hardcore at marketing, it's hard to do the rest. And so I spent a year and a half developing the team to be able to do that, which is, it's just hard to create a company and diversify the roles like that.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's the biggest challenge. The legal work is just so natural at this point, or so, and you know how to do that part. That part's, quote, easy. Nothing is easy, but compared to the new parts,
it's not like reinventing the wheel. It's just the headache of dealing with agencies and stuff like that.
Sure.
If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
I'm pretty easy. I've got my website, but LinkedIn is great. If you're another attorney that just wants to chat H-2B or don't know what to do with H-2B cases and want to refer them out, I'm happy to do that, or happy to help. If you've got one that you just are stuck, employers, I've got phone, email, website.
Well, I saw
I'm
you got you
available to
set
all
up
the
your own
things.
email. So it's Meagan,
Yep.
Meagan at KirchnerImmigration.com.
Yes.
Awesome. Hopefully we can set up some sort of CLE where we go into some more detail in our private setting so we could, legal stuff's hard doing a private podcast, but I'd love to have you on and work more
Sure.
to Toolbox.
That'd be great. Happy to
Awesome.
help.
Stay on the line. We'll talk a little bit, but thank you everyone for listening. This is really good because even though you've done an article about this, I still don't really understand H-2B until right now. I'm like, okay, this is what it is. I'm still not going to do it because it seems like you need to have a focus on that, but it's good to know who to go to when it comes up. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.